The last face you'll ever see isn't family.
Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to a time of mud and mist, to the shadowed fringes of forgotten villages where faith and folklore bled into one another. We're exploring a profession so steeped in ritual and revulsion that it was spoken of only in whispers, a job for the most desperate and condemned souls in society. We're going to become a sin eater. The work is simple, really. You show up when someone dies, you eat a piece of bread, you drink a bowl of ale, and in doing so, you absorb all the unconfessed sins of the deceased, allowing their soul to pass peacefully into the afterlife while you take their spiritual damnation onto yourself. It's basically the grimmest possible form of spiritual sanitation work, and honestly, given the diet of stale bread and the whole being a pariah for life thing, you probably wouldn't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Comment your city and local time. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The rain isn't just falling. It's a solid gray sheet, relentlessly determined to turn your world to mud and misery. It drums a mournful, chaotic rhythm on the sagging thatch of your hovel, each drop a tiny hammer against your solitude. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of damp earth, wood smoke, and poverty. A feeble fire sputters in the hearth, its weak orange light doing little to push back the encroaching shadows that cling to the wattle and daub walls like a second skin. You're huddled on a stool, wrapped in a thin, scratchy blanket, watching the flames consume your last few sticks of wood. Hunger is a familiar companion, a dull ache in your belly that has become part of your daily existence. It's a hunger that makes the stale half-loaf on your rickety table look like a feast for a king. Then, a sound cuts through the drumming of the rain. A knock. It's not a firm, confident knock. It's hesitant, furtive. 3 quick, soft taps on your crude wooden door. You freeze. No one comes to your hovel at the edge of the parish, especially not after dark, and certainly not in a storm like this. The villagers avoid this place, as if the plague itself were simmering in your cookpot. You are a ghost to them long before you are dead, a necessary evil to be ignored until you are, well, necessary. The knock comes again, a little more insistent this time, laced with a desperation that travels through the wood and into the very air of the room. Your heart, which had been beating in a slow rhythm of cold and hunger, gives a painful thud. You know what this is? You've been dreading it and, shamefully, hoping for it. With a deep breath that feels like you're inhaling the damp chill of a tomb, you rise. The mud floor is cold and squelches slightly under your bare feet. You pull the latch. The door groans open to reveal a figure, a young man, barely more than a boy, silhouetted against the churning gray twilight. Rain plasters his hair to his pale forehead, and his eyes are wide with a mixture of grief and shame. He won't look directly at you. His gaze is fixed somewhere over your shoulder, on the shadowy wall behind you. He is the son of the blacksmith, you realize. You've seen him in the village, laughing with his friends, strong and vibrant. Now he looks hollowed out. He's gone, the boy stammers, his voice barely a whisper above the storm. My father. It was his heart. Sudden. You say nothing. You just wait. This is a delicate dance, a transaction wrapped in layers of unspoken terror and social taboo. He doesn't need to say more. A sudden death was a bad death. No time for the vicar, no time for last rites or a final, cleansing confession. The blacksmith, a man known for his short temper and his love of strong ale, has died with a lifetime of petty sins clinging to his soul. In the village's eyes, that soul is now trapped, unable to cross over, doomed to wander in torment. And a wandering, tormented soul is a danger to the living. The boy's hand trembles as he reaches into his pocket. He pulls out a coin. In the faint light from your dying fire, you see the silver glint. A groat, 4 pence. It's a pitiful sum, but to you it represents a week of bread, a small measure of firewood. It is the price of a man's eternal peace. It is the price of your own damnation. He still won't say the words. He doesn't have to. We need help, he says, his voice cracking. For his rest. He thrusts the coin towards you, holding it between his thumb and forefinger as if it were a burning coal. His shame is so thick you can almost taste it. He is asking you to perform the service, the one spoken of in horrified whispers, the one the church condemns as black magic and blasphemy. Historians still debate whether your role was ever a formal profession, a recognized, albeit loathed, part of the social order. Some argue it was merely a folk superstition, a defamatory legend attached to the most destitute who were willing to perform strange rituals for a crust of bread. But for you, in this moment, the academic debate is meaningless. The boy's fear is real. The unconfessed sins of his father are real. And the coin, the beautiful, terrible coin he offers, is very real. Your stomach gives another painful, demanding clench. You look from the coin to the boy's terrified, rain-streaked face. You know that by taking it, you are sealing your fate. You will no longer be merely poor and forgotten. You will be unclean, a vessel for the transgressions of the dead, a pariah marked for eternity. Every villager who sees you will cross the street. Children will throw stones. You will be utterly, completely alone. Slowly, deliberately, you reach out your hand. Your dirt-caked fingers close around the cold, wet metal. The boy flinches as if your touch has burned him. He recoils, pulling his hand back as soon as the coin is free. He has his salvation. You have your fee. You turn, grabbing your thinnest, most worn-out cloak from a peg on the wall. It's more rag than garment, but it's all you have. Without a word, you step out of your hovel, pulling the door shut behind you, and follow the boy into the relentless, weeping storm. The path to the village is a slick river of mud, and the distant lights of the cottages seem to retreat as you approach, as if the whole world is shrinking away from the dreadful purpose of your journey. The walk is silent, save for the squelch of your feet in the mud and the unceasing lament of the rain. The blacksmith's son walks a good 10 paces ahead of you, a small, dark shape against the gloom. He is not escorting you, he is merely indicating the way. The distance between you is a chasm of social standing, of cleanliness and contamination. He is a grieving son, bringing home a doctor. You are a leper, being led to a corpse. As you reach the edge of the village proper, the world grows even quieter. The few windows that still hold a flicker of light are quickly shuttered as your silhouette passes. They know who you are, or rather, what you are. The word has already spread on the wings of fear and gossip. The blacksmith is dead, and the sin-eater walks. You don't go through the front door. The boy guides you around the back of the house, past the silent, hulking shape of the forge, where the anvil stands cold and sentinel. The metallic tang of coal smoke and hot iron, the ghost of the man's life's work, still hangs heavy in the air. He opens a small, little-used door, the scullery entrance, and gestures you inside before immediately stepping back out into the rain, as if crossing the threshold with you would infect him. He points down a short, dark hallway. "In there," he murmurs, and then he is gone, melting back into the night, his duty done. You are left alone in the shadows, your dripping cloak pooling muddy water on the stone floor. You move down the hallway, drawn towards the single slit of candlelight that spills from under a doorway. Pushing it open, you step into the death room. The air is immediately stifling, a thick blanket of warmth, grief, and the cloying, sweet smell of strewn herbs meant to combat the inevitable scent of mortality. In one corner, huddled together as if for protection from your very presence, are the widow and 2 younger children. They are shadows within shadows, their faces buried in their hands or turned towards the wall. Their weeping is a low, constant hum, a sound of pure misery that seems to have no beginning and no end. They do not look at you. They will not look at you. Your arrival is a profound dishonor, a final, desperate measure that will be a stain on their family's memory. Your gaze is pulled to the center of the room. There, on a simple wooden bed, lies the blacksmith. In life, he was a mountain of a man, red-faced and loud, his arms corded with muscle. In death, he seems smaller, deflated. His skin has a waxy, pallid sheen in the flickering light of the single tallow candle burning on the bedside table. His hands are crossed over his chest, his jaw bound shut with a strip of linen. This is the vessel, the source of the spiritual sickness you have been hired to cure. The widow, a stout woman whose face is puffy and red from crying, makes a small, sharp movement. Without turning her head, she uses her foot to shove a low, 3-legged stool towards the bedside. It scrapes against the floorboards, the sound unnaturally loud in the funereal quiet. On the table next to the candle is your payment for this part of the ritual. A thick, coarse slice of dark bread on a pewter plate, and a wooden bowl filled to the brim with dark, heady ale. You move to the stool and sit. The springs of the mattress creak as you lean forward. You can feel the collective gaze of the family on your back, a heavy, burning pressure of fear and disgust. This is the moment. You pick up the heavy slice of bread. It is dense and cool to the touch. You then take the bowl of ale, careful not to spill a drop. As tradition dictates, you pass the open bowl slowly over the blacksmith's body, a hovering, unholy baptism, from his still forehead down to his rigid feet. You imagine the man's unconfessed sins, a lie told in trade, a moment of drunken rage, a lustful glance, a bout of envy towards a neighbor. All the small, grubby transgressions of an ordinary life, rising like heat haze from the corpse and dissolving into the dark liquid. Then, you place the bread directly onto the center of his chest, resting it over his folded hands. It lies there, a pale island on the dark fabric of his death shroud. You let it sit for a long, silent minute. You can almost feel it, a strange, metaphysical transaction taking place. The bread seems to grow heavier, denser, as if it is soaking up not moisture but secrets, soaking up the weight of a life. Finally, you retrieve the loaf. It feels colder now, heavier. You bring it to your lips. Your throat is dry, and for a moment, you think you might gag. But the gnawing hunger in your own belly is a powerful motivator. You take a bite. The bread is stale and tastes of earth and cellar dust. It's hard to chew, hard to swallow. Each mouthful feels like swallowing a stone, a piece of someone else's past. You force it down, bite after miserable bite, until the plate is empty. Then you lift the bowl of ale. It is bitter on your tongue, the dregs of the barrel, but you drink it down in 3 long, difficult swallows, wiping your mouth with the back of your hand. It is done. The meal is finished. Now, only the words remain. Historians still debate the precise words uttered at this moment, whether it was a formalized prayer passed down through generations of outcasts, or if each sin-eater improvised their own wretched monologue. Yours is a simple pact, one you heard whispered once and have never forgotten. You lean close to the blacksmith's still face, so close you can smell the faint, sweet scent of decay beneath the herbs. In a low voice, a murmur that only you and the dead can truly hear, you recite the creed. I give my soul for your sins. For thy peace, this weight I take in. Go you to your rest, free and light. And I to my damnation this night. Your journey is done. Mine is but begun. A shudder runs through you, a deep, internal tremor. The air in the room seems to shift. You have taken it all. The blacksmith's spiritual slate is wiped clean. The burden is now yours. You stand, your legs stiff. The stool scrapes the floor again as you push it back. The widow lifts her head just enough to see you. Her eyes are filled with a potent cocktail of relief and pure hatred. She doesn't need to speak. She just points a trembling finger towards the door. Your service is rendered. You are to be gone. You turn and walk out of the room, leaving the family to their now purified grief. You don't look back. As you step out the scullery door and back into the cold, cleansing rain, the single groat in your pocket feels impossibly heavy, as if it's not a coin at all, but a piece of a man's soul you've just bought and sold. The door to the blacksmith's house clicks shut behind you, and the darkness swallows you whole. The journey back to your hovel is a reversal of the one before, but it feels 10 times as long. The mud seems to pull at your feet with more insistence. The rain feels colder, more personal, as if every drop is a tiny accusation. You walk with your head down, your cloak pulled tight, but it offers no comfort. There is a new chill inside you now, a deep, soul-level cold that has nothing to do with the storm. In your clenched fist, the groat is a single point of hard, unforgiving reality. Its metallic edges dig into your palm. Something has changed in the landscape of the night. The familiar sounds, the sighing of the wind through the gorse, the distant bleating of a lost sheep, are now layered with something else, something sinister that hangs just at the edge of your hearing. Is that a whisper tangled in the wind, a mournful sigh that is too human to be the breeze? You glance over your shoulder into the impenetrable black, but there is nothing. Of course, there is nothing, and yet you cannot shake the feeling that you are no longer walking alone. A strange, fringe belief, one you dismissed as fanciful nonsense before, now creeps into your mind. The idea that the sin-eater doesn't just take the sins, but is haunted by the shades of the souls they have cleansed. You feel a new presence, a heavy, spectral companion at your back, smelling faintly of forged smoke and bitter ale. By the time the dark shape of your own hovel emerges from the gloom, you are trembling. It offers no sense of homecoming, no relief. Pushing the door open, you are met with a profound and absolute silence. The fire is nothing more than a handful of pale, glowing embers, breathing its last. The room is colder than when you left. Before, it was the simple emptiness of a poor man's hut. Now it feels like a tomb. It is your quarantine, the place where you must contain the spiritual contagion you carry. This is your curse and your prison. Your first instinct is an overwhelming urge for cleanliness, a futile desire to wash away what has happened. The plate and bowl, a sin-eater's tools, were left at the house as custom demands. They are part of the family's burden now, to be destroyed or buried, never used again. But you are the primary tool. You stumble back outside to the overflowing rain barrel by the side of the hovel. Plunging your hands into the icy water, you scrub at them, your nails, your palms, your wrists. You splash the freezing water on your face, trying to wash away the lingering taste of the death ale, the phantom texture of the sin bread. But it's no use. The stain is not on your skin. It's inside you, woven into your very spirit. Returning to the dim interior, you unclench your fist and finally look at the payment. The single silver groat shines dully in the faint orange glow of the embers. 4 pence. Historians still debate the meaning of this payment. Was it a sacred, symbolic fee, a specific amount prescribed by ancient folk tradition for an unholy sacrament? Or was it simply an act of brutal economics? The absolute lowest price a desperate family could pay for the most reviled job in the world. A transaction born not of faith, but of pure, abject desperation? Staring at the coin, you feel no sense of sacredness. It feels dirty. It is the wage for renting out your soul. You tuck it away in a small clay pot where you keep your few possessions, but you can feel its presence from across the room, a cold, heavy weight in the corner. You try to lie down on your straw pallet to find the solace of sleep, but your mind is a churning sea of dread. The waxy, still face of the blacksmith is burned onto the inside of your eyelids. The memory of the thick, stale bread returns, making your throat constrict. You can still feel the weight of it in your stomach. And the sounds. The house groans and creaks as the storm batters it, but every noise is now suspect. That groan, was it just the old timbers of the roof settling, or was it the low, mournful sigh of a newly unburdened soul, lingering before its final departure? You tell yourself it's the wind. It must be the wind. But a new, terrifying paranoia has taken root. You are a haunted house, and the first ghost has just moved in. As the hours crawl by and the storm slowly exhausts itself, the full, crushing weight of your decision settles upon you. This single act has defined the rest of your days. Your life is no longer your own. It is a waiting game. Waiting for sickness, for accidents, for old age to claim another villager. Waiting for the furtive knock, the shameful offer. Your future is a bleak road paved with other people's deathbeds. The gnawing hunger that drove you out into the storm has been sated by the bread and the coin, but it has been replaced by a colder, more profound emptiness. It is the emptiness of total isolation. You are a vessel, a walking graveyard for the trespasses of others. And tonight, with the ghost of a blacksmith as your silent companion, you feel the first stone of that graveyard being laid upon your heart. You are no longer just a man. You are the sin-eater. The morning after the storm arrives with a cruel, mocking beauty. The sky is scrubbed clean, a brilliant, piercing blue, and the rising sun casts long, sharp shadows across the glistening, rain-soaked land. For everyone else in the parish, it is a morning of renewal. For you, it is the first day of your new life, and the brightness only serves to make the shadows you now carry feel darker. The ghost of the blacksmith has settled, a silent, heavy presence in the corner of your mind. You are profoundly alone, yet you no longer feel entirely by yourself. Days turn into a week. The groat you earn sits in its clay pot, both a comfort and a curse. But food is food, and eventually, necessity drives you from your hovel and back towards the village. The walk feels different in the daylight. You are exposed, visible. As you approach the first few outlying farms, you see it begin. A woman, feeding chickens in her yard, catches sight of you on the path. Her hand freezes mid-throw. She doesn't gasp or scream. She simply turns her back on you, a deliberate, solid wall of rejection, and stands perfectly still until you have passed. A little further on, two men mending a fence suddenly become intensely fascinated with a knot of wood, refusing to lift their heads, their conversation ceasing as you draw near. This is the ritual of your daily life now, the counterpart to the one you perform at deathbeds. It's the practice of shunning, of averting the gaze. To meet your eye, they believe, is to risk contagion, to invite bad luck, to share for a moment in the damnation you carry. As you enter the village proper, a hush falls over the small market square. Mothers instinctively pull their children behind their skirts, their hands clamped over their little ones' eyes. The cheerful chatter of the merchants dies on the air. You are a walking eclipse, blotting out the light of normal life wherever you go. You approach the baker's stall, your mouth dry. The baker's wife, a woman who in your previous life would sometimes offer a kind word, now refuses to look at you. She sees you coming, places a loaf of bread on a separate, designated barrel at the edge of her stall, and turns away, busying herself with rearranging sacks of flour. You leave the coin on the barrel, take the bread, and retreat. The entire transaction happens in absolute silence, a pantomime of commerce steeped in dread. You learn the rhythm of this new existence. You become a creature of the dusk and dawn, doing your foraging for roots and berries when the woods are empty. You learn to read the clouds, the habits of birds, the subtle signs of the changing seasons, for they are your only real companions now. You watch the life of the village from the surrounding hills, the smoke from their chimneys, the sound of the church bell on Sunday, the distant laughter from a summer wedding you could never attend. You are a geographer of a country to which you are permanently exiled. In your solitude, you begin to assemble the tools of your trade. You find a fallen branch of a yew tree, its wood dark and dense, the tree itself long associated with graveyards and the passage between worlds. You spend weeks slowly carving it into a staff, not for support, but as a signifier. It is your scepter of office, a warning and a symbol of your purpose. You also find a block of birch and painstakingly hollow out a simple bowl and spoon. These are yours and yours alone. You know, without anyone needing to tell you, that you can never again share a plate or drink from a common cup. Your contagion is total. Sometimes, in the long, quiet evenings, as you stare into your meager fire, you wonder about the strangeness of your fate. Historians still debate whether your profession was a phenomenon unique to these misty isles and the Welsh marches, a peculiar superstition born of local folklore and isolation. But you wonder if other, similar souls exist elsewhere. You picture a man in the deep, dark forests of Germany, or a woman in the sun-scorched hills of Sicily, performing their own desperate rites for the dead, speaking different words but carrying the same terrible burden, living the same lonely life. The thought doesn't make you feel less alone, but it makes your loneliness feel vast, ancient, and strangely universal. Summer ripens and begins to fade into the bronze and gold of autumn. The memory of the blacksmith's death room has softened from a sharp terror into a dull, persistent ache in your soul. You have grown accustomed to the silence, to the averted eyes, to the phantom presence that always seems to be just behind you. You have settled into your role. Then, one evening, as a chill wind strips the first leaves from the trees, the knock comes again. It is not the hesitant, shame-filled tap of the blacksmith's son. This knock is firm, resigned. A farmer from the western slopes whose wife has succumbed to a long fever. He doesn't stammer or look away. He simply states his business and holds out the coin. The village has accepted your role. You are no longer a shocking secret. You are a grim, established fact. A functionary of the afterlife. You feel no panic this time, only a weary resignation. You nod once, take the coin, and turn back into your hovel. You retrieve your yew staff from its corner, its smooth, dark wood cool in your hand. Your heart is heavy, but it is steady. The waiting is over. It is time to go to work. Years pass. The rhythm of your life solidifies into a predictable, desolate pattern. Long stretches of solitude, of foraging and watching the seasons turn, punctuated by the grim ceremony of your trade. You have been summoned half a dozen times now. You have consumed the simple, earthy sins of a fever-stricken farmer's wife, the frightened, unconfessed guilt of a young man thrown from a horse, the weary regrets of an old woman who simply faded away in her sleep. Each time, you take the bread and the ale, you speak the words, you accept the coin, and you walk away with another whisper, another shadow, added to the silent entourage that follows you. You have become proficient in your misery, an expert in the geography of grief. Then one crisp autumn evening, a different kind of summons arrives. It's not a grieving family member knocking at your door, but a man you've never seen before, dressed in the dark, sober livery of a household servant. He is from the manor on the hill, the one that overlooks the entire village, the seat of the local squire. He stands stiffly at your threshold, his face a mask of professional neutrality, though you can see the deep unease in his eyes. The old master, Squire Hemlock, has passed, the servant announces, his voice clipped and formal. His son requires your services. He doesn't offer you a coin. He simply turns and expects you to follow. This is not a request born of desperate grief. It is a command. You grab your yew staff and fall into step behind him. The social chasm between you is wide and deep as a ravine. You are not led through the village, but on a private, winding path that climbs the hill towards the great house. It's a world away from the muddy lanes and thatched roofs below. Here, the path is graveled, the trees are old and deliberate, and the air itself seems cleaner, thinner. As always, you are taken to a rear entrance, through a labyrinth of stone-flagged scullery rooms and kitchens that are cleaner and better supplied than any home you have ever set foot in. The other servants fall silent as you pass, their work ceasing. They don't avert their eyes with the raw fear of the villagers. Instead, they watch you with a kind of morbid, theatrical curiosity, whispering behind their hands. This is a different kind of shame, one layered with class and propriety. You are shown into the master's bedchamber. The sheer scale of it takes your breath away. A great fire roars in a hearth carved from stone. A vast, four-poster bed draped in deep crimson velvet dominates the room. The air is heavy with the scent of beeswax and an expensive, floral incense you can't name. Lying in the center of the bed, dressed in a fine linen shirt with ruffles at the neck and wrists, is the body of old Squire Hemlock. His face is thin and aquiline, his hands, which once held the deeds to every field you can see from the window, are pale and claw-like on his chest. The squire's son, a man in his prime with the same hard eyes as his father, stands near the fire with his wife. They nod at you, a curt, almost imperceptible dip of the chin. There are no tears here, no overt grief. There is only a stiff, uncomfortable formality. Their embarrassment at needing you, at resorting to this crude, common superstition, is a palpable force in the room. The offering is laid out on a silver tray. It is not the coarse, dark bread of the common folk, but a small roll of soft, white manchet bread, the kind reserved for the wealthy. Beside it is not a wooden bowl of ale, but a heavy, polished silver goblet filled with deep red wine. And when you look to the son, he doesn't hold out a coin. He places a purse on the tray. You can hear the clink of several coins within it. You perform the ritual in a charged, clinical silence. You pass the heavy goblet over the old man's body. You place the soft, pale bread upon his chest. And as you do, you feel a difference. The sins of the common folk felt like stones, heavy, simple burdens of anger, envy, or despair. This feels different. The squire was a man renowned for his ruthless dealings. He foreclosed on farms, enclosed common lands, and ruled his corner of the world with an iron fist. His sins, you feel, are not stones, but a kind of thick, cloying oil. Greed, pride, calculated cruelty, a lifetime of casual disregard for the suffering of others. They feel heavier, more corrupting. When you eat the bread, it is soft and easy to swallow, but it leaves a greasy, foul coating on your tongue. When you drink the wine, it is rich and full-bodied, but it has a bitter, metallic aftertaste like old blood. The transfer feels more profound, more violating. You are not just taking on transgressions, you are consuming a legacy of cold-hearted avarice. As you whisper your incantation, you glance at the son's face. It is impassive, unreadable, and you wonder, as historians still debate, what the wealthy truly believed. Were they genuinely terrified for the old man's soul, seeking a folk remedy that the church could not provide? Or was this all a cynical performance, a way to appease their superstitious servants and tenants, to show they had done everything possible for the old man's spirit, covering all their bases, both divine and profane? Perhaps to them, you are not a spiritual necessity, but just one more undertaker to be paid, a piece of grim theater to be endured and then forgotten. The moment the last word leaves your lips, the son nods to the servant. Pay him and show him out. The servant hands you the purse. It is heavy. You are dismissed. No one says a word as you are led back through the maze of corridors and out into the cold night. You walk down the hill, the lights of the manor shrinking behind you. You open the purse. Inside is a shilling, 12 pence, more than you have earned in a year. But as you clutch the coins, they feel slick, unclean. The squire's cold, calculating shade seems to settle over you, a ghost far more chilling than the simple, mournful blacksmith. Your spiritual baggage has a new, aristocratic resident, and your soul feels heavier and colder than ever before. The squire's shilling brings a strange and hollow season of prosperity. For the first time in years, your belly is consistently full. You can afford to buy meat from the butcher, left on the same designated barrel, of course, and your fire burns bright and warm with properly seasoned wood. Your hovel, once a shell of cold and misery, becomes almost comfortable. But this newfound physical comfort serves only to throw your spiritual decay into sharper relief. The warmth of the fire does not reach the cold spot in your soul where the squire's avarice has settled. The taste of good food is always tainted by the memory of his greasy, sin-laden bread. With the constant, gnawing distraction of hunger temporarily silenced, you are left with nothing but time to think. You sit by your fire for hours, you staff across your knees, and you turn the nature of your work over and over in your mind. examining it from every angle like a strange, dark jewel. What is it truly that you do? The ritual is simple, yet its meaning feels impossibly complex. The bread, the ale or wine, the body, the words, a transaction that saves one soul at the expense of another. You know what the vicar preaches from his pulpit on Sundays. You've heard his booming voice carry on the wind, condemning the old ways, the superstitions that cling to the parish like ivy on a ruin. He calls your work a blasphemy, a diabolical parody of the most sacred Christian rite. The Holy Eucharist, where the faithful take bread and wine as the body and blood of Christ who died for their sins. You do the same, in a way, but you are no savior. You are an inversion, a dark mirror of the priest. He offers communion with God. You offer communion with the dead. He offers salvation through divine sacrifice. You offer it through your own personal damnation. Are you a holy man or the foulest of heretics? Your mind drifts further back, past the time of the new church, to older tales, the half-forgotten fireside stories of your grandmother. Whispers of pre-Christian times, of rituals tied to the land, the seasons, the turning of the wheel of the year. You remember a story from the old book the vicar sometimes reads from, a story of a goat upon which a priest would lay all the sins of the people. This scapegoat, burdened with the community's transgressions, would then be driven out into the wilderness to die, carrying the sins away with it. A cold dread, a feeling of profound and terrible recognition, washes over you. You are that goat. You are the human scapegoat for the dead. When a soul is too burdened to travel on, the family calls upon you. They lay their loved one's sins on you, not with hands, but with bread and ale. And then they drive you out, back to your own wilderness of solitude, to carry that weight for them. You are not just an outcast. You are a living vessel for banished evils, a necessary sacrifice to maintain the spiritual balance of the community. You are trapped in this question, the very same one that historians will one day debate in quiet, comfortable libraries. What is the true origin of your cursed profession? Is it, as the vicar claims, a debased and twisted memory of a Christian sacrament, a folk magic that has perverted the Holy Communion into something monstrous? Or is it something far, far older? A pagan rite that has survived the coming of the cross by cleverly disguising itself, grafting itself onto the new religion's deepest anxieties about death, judgment, and the afterlife. Are you the last practitioner of a forgotten faith, or the first heretic of a new one? You find no answers in the flickering flames of your fire. You are the living, breathing embodiment of the mystery, and its weight is suffocating. This period of reflection changes you. The fear and shame that marked your first few rituals have curdled into a kind of grim, fatalistic acceptance. You are no longer just a poor man forced into a desperate trade. You see yourself now as a part of an ancient, cosmic mechanism, a ferryman of sin. You are a liminal creature, belonging neither to the village nor the wilderness, neither to the living nor the dead, neither to the church nor the old ways. You exist in the cracks between worlds. Eventually, the squire's shilling is spent. The last of the good firewood burns to ash. The last of the salted meat is eaten. The brief season of comfort ends, and the familiar, dull ache of hunger returns to your belly. The philosophical torment of the past few months has given you no peace. It has only deepened your understanding of your own wretchedness. You are left with the same cold hovel, the same averted gazes, and a growing collection of tormented shades whispering in the corners of your mind. You are the same man, but you see yourself and your world through darker, older eyes. When the next knock comes, it will find a man who no longer questions his fate, but has surrendered to it entirely. Your season of grim reflection ends as it always does, with a knock on the door. A wasting sickness has taken the village weaver, a quiet man known for his intricate patterns. The ritual is somber and familiar. The family's grief is a thick, silent blanket in the small, stuffy room. The bread is coarse, the ale is thin. You do your work, take your payment, and leave, your spiritual collection now one soul richer. You have become so accustomed to the weight of your trade that you barely notice the weaver's gentle, sighing spirit falling into step beside the cold squire and the sullen blacksmith in your mind. You are walking the lonely path back to your hovel, your staff making soft thuds in the dirt, when a figure steps out from behind a large oak tree, blocking your way. You stop, your hand tightening on your staff. It is not a desperate villager or a haughty servant. It is the vicar. He is a tall, severe man with a face that seems permanently etched with disapproval. In the village, his presence is one of authority and divine connection. Here, on this secluded path, he seems more like a predator, Unlike the others, he does not avert his gaze. He stares directly at you, his eyes burning with a righteous fire that is more terrifying than any villager's fearful glance. So the ghoul returns from his feast. The vicar's voice is low and laced with contempt. He takes a step closer, his black cassock blending with the deepening shadows of the trees. I have tolerated your presence in this parish, seeing you as a wretched, ignorant creature to be pitied. But this mockery continues, and my patience is at an end. You remain silent. There is nothing to say. You are what you are. His condemnation is simply a fact of your existence, like the rising of the sun. Do you have any idea what you do? He continues, his voice rising in zealous passion. You perform a sacrament of Satan. You take the holy rite of the Eucharist, the sacrifice of our Lord Jesus Christ, who alone can take away the sins of the world, and you twist it into a foul pantomime. You, a wretched sinner yourself, dare to offer a salvation that is not yours to give. You are a charlatan and necromancer, preying on the fears of the simple-minded. His words are a physical force, meant to batter you into submission. He is the official shepherd of this flock, the sole licensed guardian of their souls, and your very existence is an affront to his authority, a challenge to his monopoly on the afterlife. As he speaks, you glance past his shoulder, towards the distant rooftops of the village. From this angle, you can see the weaver's cottage, and you notice a small, dark object nailed to the lintel above the door. A horseshoe, placed there to ward off evil. You saw the same on the blacksmith's door, and you've seen other charms, carved rowan branches, bundles of herbs, tucked into the thatches of other homes. A flicker of dark, bitter amusement touches your heart. They call on you to swallow the darkness, yet they nail charms to their doors to keep that same darkness at bay. They use your forbidden rite to cleanse their dead, then use older magic to protect themselves from you, the tool of their salvation. And the vicar, for all his learning, condemns your superstition while ignoring the rampant, contradictory folk magic practiced by his own flock. You look back at his fervent face, and you see the question that future historians will debate. Is his fury born of pure theology, a genuine, scholarly horror at the blasphemy you represent? Does he truly believe you are a diabolical agent, a stain on the soul of his parish? Or is there something else churning beneath the surface? Is this also a battle for power? A pragmatic need to stamp out any spiritual competition? You are a rival service. In the terrifying moments following a death, when faith wavers, some of his flock turn not to his prayers and his God, but to you and your ancient, whispered promise. You are a threat to his trade, and his anger is that of a guild master finding an unlicensed craftsman working on his territory. This will stop, the vicar says, his voice dropping to a menacing calm. He points a long, bony finger at you. You will cease this diabolical trade. If you do not, I will no longer handle this as a matter of parish discipline. I will go to the magistrate. There are laws against witchcraft, against heresy. You will find yourself in the stocks, or at the whipping post, or worse. God's mercy is infinite, should you choose to repent. But man's justice is not. The threat hangs in the air between you, cold and sharp. He wants you to disappear, to renounce your function, to leave his flock entirely in his care. He is drawing a line not in the dirt, but on your very soul. He holds your gaze for a long moment longer, then, with a final look of profound disgust, he steps aside, clearing the path. Go back to your sty, and pray on what I have said. You walk past him without a word, feeling his burning eyes on your back. The encounter does not leave you trembling with fear, as he might have intended. Your fatalism is too deep for that now. Instead, it fills you with a chilling sense of clarity. You were already an outcast, a pariah, a ghost. Now, you are officially a criminal, a hunted thing. Your strange, lonely profession must now be practiced with the added risk of persecution. It must sink deeper into the shadows, become a thing of the uttermost dead of night. The vicar's warning was meant to break you, but instead, it has simply reinforced the walls of your prison, making your isolation absolute. The vicar's threat forces your trade deeper into the earth, like a root seeking darkness. The summonses become even more furtive. No longer a knock at the door, but a single rock placed on your window ledge, a twig snapped and left in a cross on your path. The payments are left under a specific stone at the crossroads, to be collected after your grim work is done. You become a creature of pure night, a rumor that only solidifies into flesh in the desperate, candlelit hours of a death watch. And so the years turn. The wheel of the season spins again and again, and you spin with it, a fixed point of misery around which the village lives and dies. Winter's biting frost gives way to the muddy hope of spring, which ripens into the deep green of summer, then fades into the melancholic gold of autumn. The faces begin to blur. The young man with the panicked eyes, thrown from his horse. The old woman whose sins were as light as dust motes. The surly farmer who died of a swollen heart. The mother who passed in childbirth, her sins tangled with terror for the infant she was leaving behind. They all merge into one long, continuous ritual. One endless deathbed. The specifics fade, leaving only the elemental truths of your trade. The stale bread, the bitter ale, the cold coin, and the averted gaze of the living. You watch generations rise and fall from your lonely vantage point. The children who once ran from you grow into adults who shun you, who then grow into stooped elders whose death rattle summons you. You have eaten the sins of people whose parents' sins you also consumed. You are the constant, the dark inheritance of the parish. The weight of these accumulated lives begins to manifest not just in your soul, but in your very body. This is more than the simple decay of age. Your hair, once dark, has skipped gray and turned a stark bone white. Your back is permanently bent now, not the gentle stoop of an old man, but a deep, pronounced curve, as if you are carrying a great, invisible sack upon your shoulders. When you catch a rare glimpse of your reflection in a still pool of rainwater, the face that stares back is a roadmap of other people's sorrows. Your eyes are not merely old, they are ancient, hollowed out, containing a universe of quiet desperation. You carry the physical burden of your metaphysical trade. The quiet, ghostly companions in your mind have grown into a crowd. The blacksmith's sullen silence, the squire's cold cynicism, the weaver's gentle regret, they have been joined by dozens more. The murmur of their presence is no longer a haunting. It has become the constant, familiar soundtrack to your solitude. They are your flock. You know them more intimately than the vicar ever could, for you know them by their final, unvarnished truths, by the secret shames they carried to their graves. You are the secret historian of the village, a walking archive of its collective conscience. The world outside your forgotten parish is changing. Travelers occasionally bring news of iron roads and cities choked with smoke, of new ideas that are sweeping the land. But here, the old ways die hard. The practice of sin-eating, you hear, still clings on in the most isolated places. You hear a whispered name from a tinker passing through, a story from a distant county, Shropshire. A man named Munslow, Richard Munslow. Another like you. The name strikes you with a strange sense of kinship and profound loneliness. And it makes you wonder, as historians will one day debate, how many of you there are. Are you, in this Munslow, the last of a dying breed, a designated spiritual leper for each community? Or were there always others, a scattered, informal network of the damned, any desperate soul who could be coerced into the role when the need arose? You have no way of knowing. Your path has always been a solitary one. The zealous vicar who threatened you with the magistrate is long dead. You remember the night you were called to his bedside, his family stiff with shame and necessity. You ate his sins of pride and righteous fury, a strange and bitter meal. The new vicar is a younger man who sees you not as a threat, but as a sad, half-mad relic. His pity is, in some ways, more insulting than his predecessor's hatred. You are old now, so incredibly old. The fire in your hearth is your only constant friend. You look back on the long, bleak road of your life, on the mountain of sin you have consumed. You were the community's pressure valve, their hidden drain. You took all their spiritual filth, all their fear and guilt and wickedness, so they could continue with their lives clean-faced and sanctimonious. In return, they allowed you to exist, just barely, in the dark margins of their world. The sheer volume of it all is breathtaking. You are a library of last breaths, a cathedral built of regret, and you are so very, very tired. The calls become less frequent. Months, then years, stretch between the furtive knocks and the coins left under the crossroads stone. The world is accelerating, and your parish, once an isolated island in a sea of mud and trees, is slowly being pulled into the current. A new, paved road connects the village to the distant town. Young people, once destined to work the same fields as their parents, now leave for the promise of factory work in the cities, their letters home speaking of a life you can barely imagine. The old fears, the ones that gave your profession its terrible power, are beginning to fade. The terror of a sudden unconfessed death is being replaced by the more tangible comfort of a doctor who can name a fever and prescribe a tonic. The world is filling with new kinds of light, and there is less and less room for your particular shade of darkness. You are an ancient oak tree in a field that is slowly being cleared for a new kind of harvest. Most of the villagers under the age of 40 look at you not with fear or revulsion, but with a kind of baffled curiosity. You are a local ghost story, a piece of living folklore. The vicar's sermons no longer warn against your blasphemy. They speak of progress and enlightenment, gently mocking the superstitions of the past. One bleak afternoon in late winter, when the sky is the color of iron and the trees are skeletal fingers scratching at the clouds, a knock comes to your door. It has been 5 years since the last one. The sound is so unfamiliar that it makes your old heart jump. You open the door to find a young woman, no more than 20. She is the great-granddaughter of a woman you remember from your own youth. Her face is pale with grief, but also with a kind of deep uncertainty. She is performing a duty she doesn't fully understand. "It's my great-grandmother," she says, her voice soft. "She's passed. She made me promise. She said the old way was best, to be sure." The summons is an echo, a memory of a fear she has inherited, but does not truly feel herself. You nod, your joints creaking as you reach for your staff. This feels different. This feels like an epilogue. The cottage is small and tidy. The old woman lies in her bed, looking impossibly small and frail, her face a web of wrinkles. She is the last of your generation. The air in the room is not thick with the terror you are so used to. The family's grief is sad but clean. They are not ashamed of your presence. They are simply fulfilling a final, peculiar wish. They look at you with a gentle pity. The offering is placed on the bedside table. A small piece of oatcake and a cup of clean, clear water. The young woman explains, almost apologetically, that her great-grandmother was a good woman. Pious kind. She never missed a church service. There is a belief, a fringe idea you've heard before, that some souls, infants, the truly devout, are already clean, their sins as light as feathers. This ritual, you realize, is not about scouring a soul black with transgression. It is a final piece of tradition, a comforting bedtime story being told one last time. You sit on the stool, your old bones protesting. You perform the motions that are as ingrained in you as breathing. You pass the cup of water over the tiny, still form. You place the oatcake on her chest. It rests there, feeling almost weightless. When you eat it, it tastes just like oatcake. When you drink the water, it tastes only of water. There is no bitterness, no foul residue, no spiritual weight. You are consuming the memory of a few harsh words spoken in anger 50 years ago. A moment of vanity as a young girl, the smallest, most human of failings. It is the lightest burden you have ever shouldered. The act is hollow, purely symbolic. A play performed in an empty theater. As you sit there in the quiet room, the finality of it all washes over you. The tradition is dead. You are its last gasp. And you understand why, as historians will one day debate. Was your trade ended by the firm hand of the church, finally winning its long war against folk magic? Was it the cold, clear light of science and education that chased away the old shadows? Or was it something simpler? Was it that improved roads, new laws for the poor, and a changing economy meant that no one would ever again be hungry enough, desperate enough, to choose a life like yours? The answer, you see, is all of them. The world has simply outgrown its need for you. When you are done, the young woman presses a few pennies into your palm. Her hand trembles as it touches yours, and then she does something that hasn't happened in over 60 years. "Thank you," she whispers. The words are so alien they feel like a physical blow. You can only nod in response. You rise, take your staff, and walk out of the cottage and into the fading light of the afternoon. This is the last time. You know it with an unshakable certainty. Your long, grim service is over. The great, invisible sack on your shoulders feels no heavier than it did an hour ago. Its terrible growth has been arrested. As you walk the familiar path back to your hovel, the chattering crowd of ghosts in your mind seems to fall silent, as if they too have been released by this final act. The squire, the blacksmith, the weaver, all of them. Their whispers fade. You are left, for the first time in a lifetime, truly and completely alone with your own soul. You are no longer the sin eater. You are just an old man in a hut, a relic left behind by a forgotten age, waiting for the end. You return to your hovel, and a new kind of silence begins. It is not the quiet of solitude you have known for decades. It is the silence of obsolescence. The ghosts are gone. The constant, low murmur of the souls you carried has faded, leaving a vacuum in your mind that is more deafening than their chatter ever was. For the first time since you were a young man, you are truly, utterly alone. Your purpose, the grim axis around which your entire life has revolved, has been rendered meaningless. You are a tool whose use has passed, left to rust in a corner. The days drift by, each one the same as the last. You tend to the small patch of herbs by your door. You watch the sun travel across the sky. You eat your meager meals. You sleep. But you are not living, you are simply waiting. Your body, that old stooped vessel that has been the container for so much sin, begins its final rebellion. The ache in your bones is a constant fire. Your breath comes in shallow, ragged bursts. The world begins to shrink, constricting to the four walls of your hut. Lying on your straw pallet, feeling the last of your strength ebb away, you are faced with the ultimate, terrible irony of your life's work. Who eats the sin-eater's sins? The question hangs in the dusty air of the hovel, vast and unanswerable. You, who have provided a clean passage for so many, now face your own end with a soul overflowing, pregnant with the transgressions of an entire community. The blacksmith's rage, the squire's greed, the weaver's regret, the pride of the old vicar, they are all packed within you, a dense, heavy knot of spiritual poison. There will be no one to perform the rite for you. The tradition is dead, and you are its living tomb. You recall the old tales, the fringe beliefs whispered alongside the main tenets of your trade. Some said that if a sin-eater died unpurified, the sins they held would not simply vanish. They would escape, breaking free from their prison of flesh and blood, and pour back into the community. A plague of vengeful, ownerless sins, a psychic pestilence to haunt the parish for generations. The thought brings a grim, final sense of duty. Your last act of service is simply to keep breathing, to keep these spirits contained for as long as you can. You think of your body, soon to be a corpse. Where will they put it? You know the history. You are unclean. You will not be laid to rest in the hallowed ground of the churchyard, among the families you served. You will be buried at a crossroads, so your wandering spirit will be confused and unable to find its way back to the village. Or, if they are feeling charitable, they will put you on the north side of the church, the cold, shadowed patch of earth reserved for the unbaptized, the suicides, the excommunicated, an unmarked grave for the man who took the marks of everyone else. A final, public declaration of your outcast status. And what of your soul itself? As the light outside your small window begins to fade to a deep, velvety purple, you confront the final mystery, the question that the learned men will never answer. What did you believe awaited you? All your life, you have been suspended between two poles. Did you see yourself as a martyr, a wretched but holy figure making a sacrifice so profound that a special, unwritten clause in God's law must exist for you? Or did you accept the vicar's truth, that you were irrevocably damned, a soul who made a simple, horrifying bargain and must now pay the ultimate price? Lying there, on the precipice of the great darkness, you find that you don't have the strength for either theory. There is only a vast, weary acceptance. You took the weight, you carried it, and now, you will take it with you into whatever comes next. Your breathing slows. The room grows cold. You close your eyes, and for a final, fleeting moment, you feel the immense, silent weight of every sin you ever consumed, a mountain of sorrow and regret. And then you feel it lift. And so, the story of the sin-eater comes to a quiet end. Let the image of that lonely hovel on the edge of the village begin to fade. Let the mists of that forgotten time recede, and feel yourself returning to the comfort and safety of your own room, right here, right now. The tale is a dark one, born from a time of deep fear and equally deep faith. It speaks to a terror we rarely feel anymore, the fear of a soul untethered, lost between worlds. The sin-eater, reviled and ostracized, performed a service of profound empathy, however strange its form. They were a vessel for a community's anxieties, a dark mirror that absorbed all the things people couldn't bear to look at in themselves. They walked a path of ultimate solitude, so that others could feel the comfort of belonging, both in this life and the next. As you settle deeper into your bed, think of that strange, quiet courage. Let the details of the story drift away now, like smoke from a dying fire. Let go of the heavy bread and the bitter ale, of the cold coins and the colder stares. Feel the simple, solid reality of your own space. Notice the gentle weight of your blanket, the softness of your pillow. Listen to the quiet, steady rhythm of the world around you. The soft hum of the fan, a distant car, the sound of your own steady breathing. You are safe. You are at peace. And there is nothing for you to do now but to let go and allow the current of sleep to carry you gently into your own quiet dreams.